Welcome back to Global Pulse Insights. Today, we're diving deep into a seismic shift in global politics. Is the world moving toward a multipolar order, driven by escalating US-China tensions? We'll unpack the 2025 Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin and the massive Beijing military parade, events that signal a new era of power dynamics. From Xi Jinping's bold pledges to Putin and Kim Jong-un's defiant presence, we're breaking it all down with hard facts and sharp analysis. If you're into geopolitics, global power struggles, or just curious about where the world is headed, this video is for you. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell for more. Let's get started. Since the end of the Cold War, the US has dominated as the world's sole superpower, shaping global economics, military might, and diplomacy. But in 2025, we're witnessing a historic shift toward a multipolar world where multiple powers, China, Russia, India, and others, share influence. The spark? Rising US-China tensions. Under President Donald Trump's second term, policies like steep tariffs and isolationism have strained ties with allies like Europe and India, creating space for China to rally a counter-alliance. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit and Beijing's Victory Day Parade in September 2025 are pivotal moments in this shift. Let's dive into what happened and why it matters. To understand today's shifting world order, you have to understand the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Born in 2001 from a security forum called the Shanghai Five, its initial mission was to demilitarize borders and fight terrorism, separatism, and extremism. But over 2 decades, it has evolved into a sprawling political and economic bloc. With the recent additions of Iran and Belarus, the SCO now has 10 full members, including its founders, China and Russia, and rivals India and Pakistan. This isn't just a regional club, it's a global heavyweight representing over 40% of the world's population, nearly a quarter of global GDP, and the majority of the Eurasian landmass. It is, by any measure, a pillar of an emerging multipolar world. In late summer 2025, all eyes turned to the Chinese city of Tianjin for the SCO's largest and most consequential summit yet. The guest list was a testament to its growing clout. Russia's Vladimir Putin projecting strength amid international isolation, India's Narendra Modi navigating a complex diplomatic tightrope, and Iran's new president Masoud Pezeshkian making his debut at a summit openly challenging the US-led order. With global tensions simmering, this meeting was a clear statement of intent. So, what exactly was decided behind the closed doors? Host Xi Jinping set the tone. He pledged 2 billion yuan in grants, but his headline announcement was the creation of an SCO development bank. This is a direct challenge to the Western-led World Bank and IMF, designed to fund infrastructure using local currencies, bypassing the US dollar and insulating members from American sanctions. Xi then took aim at Washington, condemning hegemonism and a Cold War mentality, a clear reference to US alliances like the Quad and AUKUS. He positioned China as a provider of stability and win-win cooperation, a sharp contrast to the Western pressure felt by countries like India for buying sanctioned Russian oil. The message was unmistakable. The West offers coercion, China offers partnership. Source CNN, September 1st, 2025. Perhaps the most significant development was the cautious thaw between India and China. This was Prime Minister Modi's first visit in 7 years, a period defined by a diplomatic freeze after the deadly 2020 border clash in the Galwan Valley. Emerging from their talks, Xi and Modi declared their nations should be partners, not rivals, and announced the resumption of direct flights. But the implications run far deeper. This is a masterclass in India's policy of strategic autonomy. Even as a key member of the US-led Quad, New Delhi is signaling it won't be locked into an anti-China camp. By re-engaging with Beijing, India is hedging its bets, maximizing its own leverage, and asserting its role as an independent power. Source, BBC 2025. The summit also powerfully reaffirmed the no-limits partnership between Russia and China, the strategic bedrock of the SCO. The optics were clear, Putin and Xi, side by side, projecting unshakable unity. For a Russia crippled by Western sanctions over its war in Ukraine, the bloc is an indispensable economic lifeline. China has become the primary buyer for its sanctioned oil and gas, funding the Kremlin's coffers. In return, China secures a powerful ally in its global contest with the US and a stable supply of energy. This axis, amplified by members like Iran, is actively working to build a counterweight to Western dominance in global affairs. Source: Reuters, August 28, 2025. So, what's the final verdict? For China, the summit was a strategic win. Xi's financial pledges and anti-Western rhetoric cast him as the leader of a non-Western coalition. The SCO Development Bank is a substantive step toward building a parallel economic order. However, the SCO is not a monolith. Deep-seated rivalries like the India-China border dispute create significant internal friction. This tension is reflected in its branding. The SCO calls it multilateral cooperation, while Western media increasingly sees an anti-US front. Ultimately, the summit highlights a world fracturing along new fault lines. While this could deepen global division, it also creates new opportunities for developing nations, offering them alternative sources of investment and a chance to navigate a world no longer defined by a single superpower. On September 3, 2025, Beijing's Tiananmen Square will host a massive military parade marking the 80th anniversary of what China calls the victory of the Chinese people's war of resistance against Japanese aggression. While commemorating history, the event is a forward-looking spectacle designed to project the power of a modern, assertive China to a global audience. Featuring over 10,000 troops and 100-plus aircraft, including J-20 stealth fighters, the parade is a bold display of China's military modernization. The real centerpiece will be its cutting-edge weapons, with the world watching for systems like the DF-17 hypersonic missile. This isn't just pageantry, it's a clear signal of a technological leap intended to neutralize long-standing American military advantages in the Pacific. Here's the breakdown. Global guest list. The list of 26 attending leaders reveals the geopolitical fault lines. The presence of Russia's Vladimir Putin, North Korea's Kim Jong-un, and Iran's President Pezeshkian solidifies a bloc of nations united in their opposition to Western sanctions. They are joined by all Central Asian presidents, cementing China's influence in its resource-rich backyard, and key Southeast Asian leaders from Indonesia and Vietnam. Europe's only attendees are Serbia's Aleksandar Vučić and Slovakia's Robert Fico. Both are Russia-friendly, and their presence, though small, offers Beijing a symbolic victory, aiming to show that Western unity is not monolithic. This lineup, dubbed the Axis of Upheaval by Reuters, represents a coalition of revisionist states. Their gathering is a collective act of defiance, a message that they are building alternative networks to circumvent Western economic and political pressure. Sources: The Diplomat, August 28, 2025. Reuters, August 28, 2025. Key absences: who isn't attending is just as significant. No major Western leaders will be present, but more pointedly, the leaders of US allies Japan and South Korea are staying away. For them, the historical commemoration is completely overshadowed by the immediate threat of China's military expansion, highlighting a world divided into competing camps. India's Prime Minister Modi, though present at the recent SCO summit, will skip the parade. This move signals New Delhi's delicate balancing act, engaging with China diplomatically while refusing to endorse its military ambitions, a clear nod to India's own security concerns and its partnership in the Quad. Source: The Diplomat, August 28, 2025. Geopolitical message: the parade's primary message is the cementing of a strategic alignment against the West. The presence of both Kim and Putin fuels intense speculation of a trilateral meeting. Such a summit would formalize a Beijing-Moscow-Pyongyang axis, building on North Korea's 2024 defense pact with Russia and creating a formidable nuclear-armed bloc to challenge the US alliance structure in Northeast Asia. This alarms the US and its allies. The advanced weaponry on display is seen as a direct threat to regional stability, particularly concerning the security of Taiwan and freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. For Japan and South Korea, it's a worrying confirmation of their strategic encirclement. Source: CNN, August 27, 2025. Analysis: ultimately, the parade is a defiant projection of power and a rally for an anti-Western bloc. It's a high-stakes gamble that knowingly risks escalating regional tensions. But from Beijing's perspective, it's a necessary step to assert its leadership in an emerging multipolar world. The stark absence of major Western powers is the clearest sign yet of a fractured global order. The images from this parade will define the new reality. The post-Cold War consensus is over, replaced by an era of open and accelerating great power competition. So, is the world going multipolar? For decades after the fall of the Soviet Union, the answer was a clear no. The United States stood as the sole superpower in a unipolar moment, shaping global rules and institutions, but that era is definitively over. Today, the international system is fracturing and reforming at an incredible pace. The answer to the question is now an absolute yes, and the primary catalyst for this seismic shift is the escalating tension between the US and a rising China. Let's break it down. The rivalry between the US and China isn't new, but it was supercharged by the Trump administration's America First policy. The imposition of sweeping tariffs and a general turn toward isolationism created a vacuum on the world stage. This perceived withdrawal from global leadership sent shockwaves through traditional alliances, leaving allies in Europe and Asia feeling uncertain and exposed. They began to hedge their bets, looking for other partners. China, under Xi Jinping, masterfully capitalized on this opening. Events like the SCO summit, complete with grand military parades, are more than just symbolic. They are a declaration of intent. Beijing has been diligently building a parallel, non-Western coalition. Its Belt and Road Initiative has created a web of economic dependencies across the globe. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization provides a security framework, and the recent expansion of BRICS to include major energy players like Saudi Arabia and the UAE is a strategic masterstroke, creating a formidable economic bloc to challenge Western-led institutions. In response, the US is not standing still. It's doubling down on its own formidable network of alliances. It has revitalized NATO, which now officially recognizes China as a strategic challenge. It has elevated the Quad, with Australia, India and Japan as the cornerstone of its Indo-Pacific strategy. And it uses the G7 to coordinate economic policy and attempt to launch counter-initiatives to China's BRI. This is a global consolidation of two competing spheres of influence. Sources: Munich Security Report 2025, Carnegie Endowment. But this isn't a simple two-player game. Other major powers are carving out their own roles. Russia, nursing ambitions of leading a greater Eurasian pole, has seen its strategic calculus upended by the war in Ukraine. Now isolated from the West and heavily sanctioned, it has become deeply dependent on China for economic survival, effectively becoming a junior partner in Beijing's world order. India, a rising giant and a leader of the global South, is playing the most complex balancing act. It actively participates in the US-led Quad to counter Chinese aggression on its border, while simultaneously championing its strategic autonomy within non-Western forums like the SCO and BRICS. Traditional US allies like Japan and Germany are also adapting. They firmly back a rules-based multipolar order which aligns them with Washington. Yet, facing threats from Russia and China, they are undergoing historic shifts, with Germany's and Japan's remilitarization. They seek a world with multiple centers of power, but one where international law still holds sway. In South America, Brazil aims to be a leader within BRICS, but its global ambitions are often constrained by severe internal political polarization and economic instability. The Middle East is a hotbed of this new non-alignment, with the China-brokered rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia signaling a decreased reliance on the US as the sole security guarantor. Meanwhile, the European Union continues its quest for strategic autonomy, but deep internal rifts over security and foreign policy hamper its ability to act as a single decisive pole. Sources: The Diplomat, August 28, 2025, Munich Security Report 2025. So why, with all these emerging players, do the US and China still dominate the narrative? The sheer scale of their power is staggering. The US boasts a $27 trillion nominal GDP, the world's reserve currency, and an unmatched global network of over 750 military bases. China counters with a $33 trillion economy by purchasing power parity, a modernized People's Liberation Army, and dominance in global manufacturing and technology, like 5G. These two giants operate in a league of their own. No other nation or bloc, not the economically powerful but militarily divided EU, Not the militarily potent but economically strained Russia, not even the rising demographic powerhouse of India, can currently match their comprehensive global reach across economic, military and technological domains. Source: Carnegie Endowment. In its 2025 report, the Munich Security Conference aptly terms this new era multipolarization. It's not a static state, but a dynamic and competitive process where various poles are actively forming and vying for influence. While many powers are involved, the central US-China rivalry sets the stage and defines the main fault lines of this new world. This emerging order is a profound double-edged sword. On one hand, multipolarity can foster greater inclusivity, giving developing nations in Africa, Asia and Latin America more agency to choose partners and chart their own course. On the other hand, it dramatically increases the risk of global fragmentation and conflict. Without a single power to enforce norms, regional disputes in flashpoints like Ukraine or around Taiwan can more easily escalate. The grand parades of the SCO are a clear signal that a new bloc is coalescing with its own vision for world order. We are in a messy, unpredictable transition. The critical question remains whether this great power competition can be managed with diplomatic guardrails and a shared understanding of mutual risks, or if the world is heading toward a new era of unchecked rivalry and open conflict. The 2025 SCO Summit and Beijing Parade are more than events. They're a declaration of a multipolar world challenging US dominance. China's rallying non-Western nations, Russia's defiance, and India's balancing act show a fractured yet dynamic global order. This shift brings opportunities, economic diversification, new alliances, but also risks, heightened conflicts and polarization. The question is, can diplomacy steer this multipolar world towards stability, or are we headed for chaos? What do you think? Will multipolarity unite or divide us? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more deep dives into global affairs. Share this video to spark the conversation. Until next time, stay curious.